Hello, everyone. Thank you all for joining us today. My name is Yara Shafani, and I am joining you all from Toronto, Canada, the traditional land of the Haudenosaunee, Anishinaabe, and Mississaugas of the Credit First Nation. I work as the Executive Director for Canadian Friends of Sabeel, and I'm very happy to be here with you all today. Thank you for joining us for the latest Kumi Now online gathering as we look at the ever-expanding settlements in the West Bank, including East Jerusalem and the violence that accompanies them. Before we start, I would like to remind you that this session is being broadcasted live on YouTube. If you do not wish to appear, please turn off your video feed. We would also love it if you could quickly share the Facebook post on Facebook so that others may join. The link will be shared in the chat. I would also like to let you know that in coming weeks, we would like to carve out time at the end of the meeting for one or more people from the audience to tell us how you are applying Kumi Now back in your community or are otherwise advocating for Palestine. The idea is to share advocacy ideas and inspiration for others. If you would like to speak for up to 5 minutes in a future meeting, please email us at kumi@kuminow.com. We're also going to introduce polling questions into some of our gatherings. Right now, we would love if you could answer 2 quick questions about your activism. Mark, could you launch the poll? Great. We'll give you a few moments to complete that. I still see some answers coming through, so I'm just going to give it another couple of seconds. Okay. Okay, amazing. I think that that's good. We've got lots of people responding. Glad to see all of the work that you're all doing in your communities. So thank you for sharing all of that. We do hope that you'll find this session interesting and informative. I would like to start by having everyone you'll be seeing today introduce themselves. Denise, we'll start with you. I'm going to ask you to unmute yourself over here. There we go.
Okay.
There we go.
sorry. Denise Asad, storyteller from Caesarea, the ruined village, living now with my family in Haifa, Palestine.
Thank you so much, Denise. It's great to be here with you. Badee, go ahead.
Badee Dwaik, the head of the National Association of Human Rights Defenders in Palestine, and also created of Capture Occupation Camera Project in Hebron.
Thank you, Badee. It's great to be here with you. And is Hisham with us? No, okay. Haya, would you like to go ahead?
Okay, my name is Haya Abu Shekidem, and I'm from the city of Hebron. I'm a journalist, and also I'm an activist at Human Rights Defenders with Badee.
Wonderful, thank you, Haya. And Alaa.
Hello, everyone. My name is Alaa Jaber. I'm from Hebron, Old City. I'm also an activist with human rights.
Thank you, Hala. It's great to be here with you all. We are waiting for one more person, and when he joins in, he'll introduce himself closer towards the presentation time. So we'll jump in. At this point, I would like to turn things over to Denise Assad, a Palestinian storyteller from Caesarea, who will be telling us a story related to today's issue.
Hello, everybody. I am so happy to be with you with the Kumi committee for the 7th or 6th week. Thanks for Omar. He is really give me a lot of smart, wise advices and helped me really to with my English to choose the stories. This story it's not a prayer. It's more than supplication, and I want Shway to explain. It's not something that belong to Christian people or Muslim. It's something more like from our Palestinian culture. I remember my mother when we were waking up very early and doing the stupid things. She was telling, "Oh, ya Fattah, ya Alim, ya Razzaq, ya Kareem." You start your, and it's not Fattah. It's like it's also for God, but it's like I don't know. It's, somebody maybe will translate it for you, but it's ya Fattah, ya Alim. It's like for God that you know everything. Ya Razzaq, ya Kareem, that you give us our food or our work. This story was collected by women from Bethlehem area and was published by Tamar Institution in Ramallah like 15 years ago. It was a big project to collect folk tales from all around Palestine. Once upon a time, in the most beautiful city, Akkar, we call it in Arabic, in Palestine, it's a Mediterranean city on a marvelous beach, lived a very rich sultan. Sultan is a king. He was really very rich. He had this huge palace where he was lived, castles, lands, jewelry, diamonds, gold, a lot of money, boys and girls, his children. Nothing disturbed him. We think so, but always there is something that happened in our folk tales. And also, all his people loved him and obeyed him. But I think that also afraid of him. But he tried really to be very democratic with his people. He liked most to sleep till noon. But every day at the dawn, even before 5 o'clock in the morning, he heard a prayer. يا فتاح يا عليم يا رزاق يا كريم يا رب اللي بدور إيش بالبحر يرجع له. It was calling God and saying, please God, bring back anything that somebody lose in the sea. And this really disturbed him because he couldn't go back to sleep. And he didn't know how to deal with this because you can't avoid people from praying or ask God for help. But it was really, he couldn't bear it anymore because he liked really to get his sleep till noon. He called his foxy smart friend or minister and he asked him to solve this problem for him. He said, okay, give me one day and I will give you the solution. Next day, even before dawn, at 3 o'clock in the morning, this minister went out the palace and stayed in the street waiting for the prayer to be said by somebody. He didn't know who. At 5 o'clock exactly, with dawn, he heard this prayer. He followed the voice. He reached the port. And exactly in the edge of the port, there was a man raising his hand and saying, Ya Fattah, Ya Alim, Ya Razzaq, Ya Kareem, please God, if somebody lose something in the sea, let him get it back. He hid and waited until this man finished his prayer and went back to his place, his store, to his house, and he followed him, hiding, and really was took care that he couldn't see him. He watched him until he reached his store. It was the jewelry store. This is was the jeweler. He didn't talk to him. He went back to the Sultan. He waited till noon until the Sultan wake up and went to him, told him about the jeweler, about the prayer, and that he knew exactly where he is living, and also told him about his secret plan, how to get rid from this man, and asked the Sultan to go with him to the store. They went to the store. The jeweler was really surprised. The Sultan, welcome, welcome, welcome. Ahlan wa sahlan, Sultan. Oh, please, please. But I didn't know that you are coming. He really didn't know how to deal with this. He was so surprised, so astonished to have the Sultan in his place. The Sultan told him, calm down. I heard that you are the best jeweler in not only in Accra, in all Palestine. Thank you, thank you. I don't know, but if you heard, probably you are right. The Sultan took from his pocket his ring and he showed it to the jeweler. And he told him, you see this ring? I get this ring from my grandfather. And my grandfather got it from his grandfather. And from his grandfather. This ring is really very, 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 very for me. And I want you to prepare for me another ring, but the same, exactly the same details, the same materials, the same diamond like mine. Okay, okay, my lord, I will do it. Say, okay, if you will do it in 3 days, I will give you treasures. I will give you gold, money, diamonds, whatever you ask. But if you will not prepare a ring like this, I will cut your neck in the city square. And all the people will learn that they have to obey the Sultan. Okay, okay, my lord, I will do it. Suddenly, the Sultan started to cough. The jeweler was really excited, but he took the ring, he put it in the safe, but he have no time to close it because the minister told him, go to your house, bring water for the Sultan. You can't see that he is coughing, please. So he left everything, went to his house. His wife was astonished, what you are doing here? Why you are not in your store? I need the best glass of water for the Sultan. Shoo, Sultan, you have a fever, my dear husband? What happened to you? You get crazy? No, you have to believe me. The Sultan came to me and he asked me to prepare for him a ring exactly as the ring he had from his grandfather. Oh my God. Okay, take the water and calm down. We took the water. Meanwhile, the minister opened the safe, took the ring, went to the sea and threw it there. And he came back half a minute before the jeweler came back to his store. The jeweler bring the water to the Sultan. The Sultan felt better. He told him another time, you have to prepare it in 3 days. Otherwise, you say it will be ready in 3 days. They left him and he waited until they disappeared. He closed his store, went to his wife to tell her the Sultan was in my store. He said, oh my God, my husband, you really get crazy. He told her, I will go to my store. I will bring the ring to show you it for you. And you will be, it will be a proof for you that the Sultan was in my store and asked me to prepare for him a ring. Exactly the same. He went to his store, opened the door, went to the safe, was still open. He opened the safe. No ring. Oh my God. He felt so bad. He hardly had the power to close the store and went back to his wife And when she saw him, she said, I told you are sick, my husband. I am not sick. The sultan will kill me in 3 days. I lost the ring. She said, oh my God. Come, come. She prepared for him lemonade. She took him to his bed to sleep. And she said, in the morning you will feel better and you will forget about this funny story the sultan was in the store. He hardly slept. Early in the morning, his wife woke up to prepare for him this our bread with za'atar, with cheese. She knew he liked it and it will let him feel better. While she was working, she heard the fisherman passing in their street and calling for his product. السمك الصراغير شجر بيدا اللي عباله ما يحرم حاله. She looked down. She said, I know what will make my husband feel better. A good fish in the oven with all my herbs, my secret herbs. She called the fisherman, asking for the biggest fish she had. He brought it to her. She gave him the money, thanked him, and went to the kitchen. She removed the fish scale, and then she took a knife. She opened the fish, and she started to remove his guts. And while she was removing, she discovered a ring. It was the Sultan ring. I can't believe that. Oh my God. She went to her husband, waked him up. Look, God heard your prayers. He was praying for all the people, not for you, but the ring is back to you. He went up, he hurried up to his store, working so hard, and he prepared a ring exactly as the ring that Sultan gave him. And in the third day, when the Sultan and minister came and they were sure that he will get rid from this man, he welcomed them with the two rings in his two hands. The foxy, smart minister was really astonished. She said, I can't believe it. It's not the same ring. The Sultan said, no, it's the same. The Sultan dismissed the minister, thanked the jeweler, and asked him to be his advisor. The fisherman, the jeweler agreed, but he told him, I will stay in my store, and if you need any help, you can come to me. The Sultan went to sleep this night, and when he heard the prayer, he felt so peaceful. He waited until the prayer finishes pray, and he went back to sleep until noon. وحكايتي حكيتها وبقلوبكم خبيتها ويا ريت تحبوها زي ما أنا حبيتها. I told you your story, my story, and put it in your heart, and I hope you will like it as I do. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Denise. That was a beautiful story.
Thank you.
I see that Hisham is here, so I just want to give him one moment to introduce himself quickly, and then we'll move on over to Alaa. Hisham, do you want to just introduce yourself?
Hello, everyone. My name is Hisham Sharabati. I am a Palestinian resident of Hebron. I am a human rights defender, and I am also the coordinator of the nonviolence resistance group based in Hebron called Hebron Defense Committee. We work against restrictions of movement in Hebron, against the colonial presence in Hebron, and all forms of colonialism and apartheid in Palestine. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Hisham. And we're now going to move on to Alaa to start us off with his presentation.
First of all, hello for everyone. Thanks for everyone who watching us or who attend this session. My name is Alaa Jaber. I'm 25. I'm living in the city of Hebron, in the old city, where it's close to the Ibrahimi Mosque. It's not a story, it's like a remembrance that relate to that grief and sorrow. In the early morning of February 2025 of in 1994, there's like a settler or a doctor. His name is Goldstein. He went or he entered the Ibrahimi Mosque in Hebron and opened his gun on the prayers, the Palestinians' prayers. While the Palestinian in Ramadan, in 15th of Ramadan, it's a holy month for the Palestinians that fasting and worshiping God. So the Palestinian in that time, in 25 of February, they were worshiping God in the prime in the early morning. After that, there's a satirist, Goldenstein, opened his gun he was heavy armed and opened his gun to the Palestinians who were praying and killed 29 prayers and injured tens of Palestinians. One of them was my uncle. My uncle passed away in the Ibrahimi Mosque because of that doctor. He is a doctor, but he's a settler. He's a settler who, with he opened his gun to the prayers who were worshiping God without doing anything wrong or without doing any violence, injusticely killed these prayers. So it doesn't end up with this. So the Palestinians or the Hebronite protest against this massacre on all the Palestinians, and also it ends up with injuries and detain the Palestinians and arrest them, kill them, and so on. So after this massacre, the Israeli closed the Ibrahimi Mosque for 6 months, and they reward themselves by depart the Ibrahimi Mosque between Israelis and Palestinians instead of victim, or instead of how to say do something to the Palestinian, we were the victim. So they depart the Ibrahimi Mosque between the Israeli and between the Palestinians. My story begins with this. After this, so my uncle, when he passed up, when he murdered in the Ibrahimi Mosque, he left his widow with 2 daughters. So in this case, this widow is left alone, okay, without her husband, because her husband has been murdered. So the family of my uncle and the family of my mother is now have been in sorrow and in grief according to this massacre. So my uncle family decide to propose on her son, or my uncle's son, who is my father now, to marry this widow, who is now my mother, because my father is considered my uncle's brother. So when my father married my mother, or this widow, now she's my mother, she was in very bad psychology. She always feels scared. She always feel ill mental, always have nightmares about these incidents, because no one was thinking that a soldier or a settler, he will open his gun in the prayers while they are praying. So all my family was living in a grief, cannot forget this memory of losing someone they love him. So when I grow up in this situation, I always feel I'm losing, my mother, she was not in her presence. She always thinking of her past, of the massacre of her husband. Even she get married his brother to take care of the two daughters, but she cannot forget the past. She cannot forget her husband. So she's still suffering till now. She always have these bad memories and making a flashback to what happened in the massacre, and that she lost her husband. And even my two sisters, that always in the remembrance of this memory, they always, you know, feel that they lost their father, because no one can make up to her father. Like, you know, if you lost your father, no one can give you the kindness or the safe or the tender like your father. And this is happened to my sister. So I live in this situation that my mother she's not in her presence. My two sisters always thinking of her father. And also after the massacre, Israeli it closed my neighbors. They put checkpoints in all the area, in like protecting that they want to protect the settlers, and in order just to put this area under the secure. But it's a false story, because they want to put the Palestinians, to put the people who are living in this area under the pressure, to suffocate them, to make them flee and leave their homes, and to open the space to confiscate these homes for the settlers. But they were false. We still resistance. Yeah, I grew up in after the massacre and in the second Intifada. My childhood was not only my childhood. All the children were living there have different story. Like each one of us has a story. So like my story should not be the same of other children's, because like maybe I'm suffering in this side, but other children have different suffering. So when I grew up with this, I felt that even in my home, there's no kind of stability because of the situation that my mother lost her husband in the massacre. Also, there's nothing to make it up to me in the normal life. So I lost a natural life that any children should have or like need to have. So I grew up, as I said, in enclosures, barriers, and always there's kind of you know, the soldiers in the night came to the houses, knocking the door through grenades while we are sleeping. So all these incidents, like it's like make our life unnormal, not natural.
Sorry, 1 minute. One more minute. Sorry to interrupt you.
It's okay.
Go ahead. Just 1 minute left.
Okay, yeah. So all these incidents that happened to me it create this this unnatural life for a children who grow up with this and face all these challenges when he grew up with this environment. So if this massacre did not happen, I think my mother will have a natural life. My two sisters, the same thing. Even me, I will have different life than I have now. So if this massacre, it was not existing, I think the life will be different. So what if the occupation was not existing? So I think the situation would be different. Thank you, thank you all of you for hearing my story, and I think I ended with this. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Alaa, and thank you for sharing your really powerful and heartbreaking story. And thank you for all the work that you're doing in Hebron to resist the occupation. I'm going to turn this over to Badee now. I'll see if I can ask you to unmute. There we go.
Hello, everybody. I'm going to talk about Hebron situation and the effects which is we are still live after the Ibrahim massacre. We are talking about the massacre, which is this massacre happened on 25th of February from 1994. But this massacre as the same Nakba. When the Nakba it's happened in 1948, we still live the effects and the results of the Nakba. So the Nakba is still running in our life. The same situation of the massacre which has happened in Hebron, we're still living the massacre in different forms. Despite of, despite of we are the Palestinians who are the victims of this massacre, the Israeli occupation, they are decided to punish the victims by applying several of rules and policies. So one of this is policies and this is rules. The Israeli occupation have been divided the Ibrahimi Mosque itself for the first time in the history and converted part of it to be a synagogue. What is this is not exist before, only after this is massacre. That's why we are as Palestinians that we believe this is massacre. It wasn't just any criminal personal or individual plan happened. It's a policy, it's fed by the Israel government because it's true that the occupation in Hebron started in 1967, but the situation after the massacre has become more difficult and more complicated for the Palestinians to live in after this is massacre, that we are planned, that we are believe very deep that this is massacre was planned and fed by the government of the Israeli government. So after this is massacre, also the Israel occupation, they announced many of areas in Hebron as closures areas. When we talk about the old town of Hebron, we are talking about such of the heart in the body. You can imagine that when your heart and your mind is controlled, so that means they are control the whole city. In the same situation, what happened in Hebron, the Israeli occupation, they control the heart, which is representative the ID or the history and the culture for the Palestinians and the Hebronites people. I am talking about the old town. And about the Shuhada Street, for example, which is representative the mind and the body, which was running all the commercial and the business and also the financial for the Palestinians. So when the Israelis, they already controlled, this is two things, they already affected the whole situation of Hebron, the whole district of Hebron, because there were many of institutions and also staff, which was feeding and serving the whole Hebron district, not just Hebron city. For example, Shuhada Street, for example, used to be linked the north side of Hebron with the south side of Hebron. And we talk about 1 kilometer street, and it's not just the street itself. We are talking about a compounded area, which is many neighborhoods was belonged with Shuhada Street, like, for example, the Old Town, the Qitun neighborhood, the Abu Snina neighborhood, the Tal Rmeda neighborhood, the At-Takrur neighborhood. All of this is places and this is neighborhoods used to be connected and was belonged to the Shuhada Street. So Shuhada Street, not just about street itself. We talk about a life. It shut down there. The Palestinians not allow for them to exist any kind of life there. About more 1,500 Palestinians people who used to be lives in Shuhada Street, that they are not living anymore there. We talk about 1,800 Palestinian shops. Most of them, they are located and based in Shuhada Street. They are not opening and not allowed for them to open anymore. And others of these shops, about 520 Palestinian shops, also based in different areas, which is all this is area is including the area which is we call it the closures areas. So the Israelis, they are not just want to they are confiscated our life. They are humiliating the Palestinians in their daily life by making many of closed roads, military checkpoints, electronic gates to controlling the Palestinian people in their daily life. We have about 111 military checkpoints and the closed road, according the OSHA, according the OSHA reports, and about 60 military checkpoints based in the heart of the city, which is about 1.5 kilometers square meter. So it's very close area. We have a lot of military checkpoints, and all of this is military checkpoints, and this is settlement which is built for to Zionists and to bring those Zionists from over the world. We are talking about many settlements in the heart of the city and also around the city and in the city itself. Let's talk about the 4 settlements, which is based in the heart of the city. We are talking about 600, 800 settlers maximum. But how many soldiers protect them? There are about 2,300 or 500 soldiers protect them. That means each one of those settlers have 5 soldiers or 4 soldiers to protect him. This is just, I brought this is statics and this is situation and this image for you to put yourself in such of this situation, how those families they are living in. When we talk about this situation, we talk about this is military bonds. That means those Palestinians people who are living in these places and these closures areas, they are under the collective punishment, which is this is also illegally according to international law. When we talk about the freedom of movement, this is a freedom of movement is not available for the Palestinians for families who have to go through this is military checkpoints within like 3 times or 4 times in their daily life, and they have to pass not just only one checkpoint, they have to pass like 3 or 4 military checkpoints. And some of places and the closures areas in Hebron, they have to be registered in a list, which is this is list left. This is names of those families left in the list with the soldiers who are in the military checkpoints. When I go through this is military checkpoints, if my name is not registered or missing from this is list, I will not be able to access through the military checkpoints, even I am resident in this is area. So the people, the rest of the people who are living in the another part of the city, they are not able or not allowed for them to access it through this is military checkpoints to visit their mothers, for example, if his mother still live inside, or to leave to visit his sisters, whatever. This is situation is only is it broke the social connections between the Palestinians themselves. So, for example, some people they cannot.
Yeah, sorry, 1 minute.
Okay, some people they cannot also married from this is people who are living in this situation because they don't want to be in charge with the situation. What I want to say, for to change all this situation is not enough for us to cry. We created Dismantle the Ghetto campaign in order to change this situation and to bring justice and the freedom for people, tell the people about the situation here. Thank you for your attention.
Thank you, Badee. And I think Ryan has linked in the chat some links to human rights defenders and the work that Badee does and your organization does. So next I'm going to call on Haya, who is a journalist and activist in the Human Rights Defenders Association.
Hi, thank you, Yara. Thank you, everyone. Can you hear me?
Yes, we do.
Good. Today I will be speaking about Palestinian women living under Israeli occupation, and specifically women in my home city of Hebron who live in the closed areas that Badee has mentioned before. And you know, Palestinian women, wherever they are in Palestine, they face both political and social burdens. But women in Hebron's H2 areas, like in the Old City and in the other areas that are considered the closed military zones, their life is even harder and they struggle even more. And as mentioned previously, people in the Old City of Hebron and the closed areas live in a very coercive environment caused by the Israeli policies that aim at displacing Palestinians and killing more settlers in those areas. And Badee mentioned the things that happen on the ground. And I will mention something about a research that I worked on with Badee Resource Center in 2016. We made a case study about the forced population transfer in the old city of Hebron. And among our findings, we stated a range of policies that lead to forced population transfer in these areas, such as denial of access to natural resources and services, oppression of resistance, segregation, denial of residency, property confiscation, and denial of use, and as well as denial of reparation. And if you go to the old city of Hebron, you see these policies clearly implemented on the ground, starting from the checkpoints that Badee mentioned, to the restrictions that Palestinians face and settlers' violence and assaults. And in general, Palestinians are not protected in any means, and their everyday life is a struggle under literally an apartheid regime. So as a journalist, you know, like I don't live in that part of Hebron, in that part of the city, but as a journalist over the years, I have worked on stories about a lot of women who live in the old city of Hebron and share their struggle with the world. And today I will give you a little insight of what kind of life these brave women have to live. All the women in Tel Ermeda or in the old city of Hebron in these areas take the responsibility to protect their homes and children as their husbands are at work during the day. Um, and of course, if an Israeli settler comes and attacks their children or throws a stone at their houses, they have to be strong enough to deal with such tough situations. Um, Leaving them in constant struggle with the settlers as well as the soldiers. And as a result, they rarely leave the house during the day when their husbands are at work, and which is limiting their freedom to movement and living a normal life, as simple as having the right and the freedom to leave their houses, say, go for shopping whenever they want. Some women also, as Ala mentioned, lost their husbands, which makes their life even harder without the support of a man in the family. I'm going to give you an example of my friend Nisreen Al Azze. She lives in the old city in Tel Ermeda, and she lives in a house wall to wall to an illegal settlement, Israeli settlement, where she and her children cross a checkpoint every day and face settlers' assaults on a regular basis. Unfortunately, she lost her husband in 2015 in an Israeli raid in Tel Ermede. Um, her husband, his name was Hashim, um, was in a raid. Israeli soldiers threw tear gas bombs at Palestinians at that time, and he inhaled so much gas that he suffocated. And Israeli soldiers denied ambulances access to Tel Ermede and left him to die. Um, and as she was grieving her husband, her Israeli settler neighbor was dancing with the sadist joy and singing, "Where is Hashem? Where is Hashem?" And these like incidents happen constantly for Palestinians who live there. And as a widow, Nisreen lives nowadays with her children with no support from anyone else. She has to provide for her children through her art. She sells portraits and paintings and stuff. And she refuses to leave her house even after the death of her husband because she believes that she should not leave it for settlers to take over it. There's also another lady who lives in a Shuhada street, which has been closed since 1994, sorry, as Ala mentioned, and after the massacre in Al-Ibrahimi Mosque. Her husband also left her because she refused to leave the house, and he divorced her and left her with three children, um, living in a house that was um, like in an empty neighborhood for a long time. So this kind of struggle that women face in Tel Ermede and in Shuhada Street and in the old city in that area are real, and we should um, we should see these struggles and support these women. It's also important to mention that a lot of women uh, have been shot and killed by Israeli soldiers at the checkpoints. For example, there is Hadil al Hashlamoon. She was just crossing a checkpoint. They suspected she had a knife, and they immediately shot her, even though it turned out that she was not threatening them or anything. So this kind of situations make Palestinians afraid to go to these areas. Like Palestinians who are not residents of the old city, they sometimes fear for their life, and which makes
the people of the old city, especially women, feel neglected by the other Palestinians who live in the other parts of the city. And so usually um, there is a social pressure on women specifically who live in that area. And I will tell you how exactly that pressure and where it comes from. For
2 minutes.
example, Palestinian women who, there's 1 minute.
2 minutes.
Okay. So Palestinian women who grow up, or let's say girls who grow up in these areas, people don't go and ask for their hands when they grow up. So they usually are left without husbands because no one is brave enough to go there and meet the girls who live there and to meet their families. So the other Palestinians, the other residents of Hebron city, like avoid going to these areas and avoid asking for these girls' hands, which leaves for the parents of the girls two choices: to either stay in their house and risk um, risk their daughter's chances of getting married, or choose to move out of the neighborhood to another safer neighborhood and risk their homes in the old city, which is like the hugest pressure that I can imagine. Sometimes the families have to split the daughters, and like let's say half of the family live in a safer neighborhood and the father has to stay in their original home in the old city so that they can work it out either way. So this is just a little example of what's going on with the life of the Palestinian women who live there. We can go on, and there are a lot of issues, but that was just a brief. And eventually, I really hope that we can all do our best to support women and Palestinians who live in the old city of Hebron. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Haya. And that's a very important piece of what's happening is the impact on women. So thank you so much for sharing that. I'd like to now turn over to Hisham. Hisham is the coordinator of the Hebron Defense Committee.
And I don't know what's left for me to tell, but anyway, so I want to talk about the general situation in a brief and maybe have more of the questions of the audience. From the first day of the occupation, the Israeli occupying forces opened the tomb of the patriarchs, the Ibrahimi Mosque for Jewish worshippers. At the beginning years of the occupation, both Muslims and Jews used to worship in the same place, not in peace and harmony, rather than with hostility and hatred. Every side considered the other side as an occupier. As in the view of the colonial settlers, we are considered colonizers or occupiers. Anyway, every time, like during the years, tension was rising high up between both the Palestinians and the settlers. Like one side prays in the mosque in a loud voice, the other side consider it as a harassment. Then they will yell at each other, quarrel with each other and so on. And of course, the Israeli troops are present all the time. Of course, since the first day of the occupation, the Israeli troops were manning the whole entrances of the mosque 24/7. The top of the friction was in 1994 when Baruch Goldstein, an Israeli settler, physician, reservist in the Israeli army, came 5:30 in the morning to the mosque with an automatic gun, a bag with big amount of ammunition. It was the middle of Ramadan for Muslims, where much more worshippers attend the prayer. He passed, of course, the Israeli security guards with his automatic gun. And while people were kneeling to pray, he sprayed them with bullets, killed the 29 of them, wounded like 125 others. That time, actually, I was working as a cameraman for a TV agency. I was like in my deep sleep. I'm not a religious person who wakes up for the morning prayer. And then like my cousin rushes into my room And he asked me to wake up and pay attention to what's going on in the city. He told me somebody came into the mosque and killed the worshippers. And I said, no, you are joking. You are not telling the truth. Somebody is in his deep sleep, and then somebody rushes to you, and he surprises you with such news. Of course, I was like arguing with him that I want to continue my sleep, don't annoy me, and so on. He says, "No, it's untrue. It's true. Listen to the loudspeakers of the mosques." And yeah, I was listening to the loudspeakers of the mosque because it was not prayer time. And then, like loudspeakers of the mosque were calling people to go and donate bloods in the hospitals and telling the news about, of course, the primary news, the beginning of the news about the massacre. As a cameraman that time, actually, I carried my camera and ran to the mosque. I did not live that far from the mosque. But on the way, I was told by the people that the area of the mosque is totally blocked by the military. And then maybe it's better for me to go to the hospital where the great majority of the victims has been transferred, which was, it's called Al-Ahli Hospital. At that time, it was a new hospital. So I got to Al Ahli Hospital. There were like thousands of people getting to the hospital. Many of them wanted to be sure that their loved ones are safe, who attended the prayers. Others were coming to donate blood. Others were coming to to explore what's going on. Like the first moment I got there, people who were in the hospital, they want the news to be covered and so on. So they asked me, like they grabbed me in a way or another to a room where they have the victims. I'm sorry to say, like I came into a room and it was full of bodies. People with the blood and just lying on a room. It was really, it's like a massacre location, but it's not the same location. But they were putting all these bodies in one room. Honestly, I started shivering. From the view, it was a very shocking view, and for some time I couldn't work. Then I went to a resting place till I collected my courage, let's say, and came back and took some footage from there. While being there, the Israeli troops arrived at the hospital. The people were very upset. There's a policy at the Israelis that sometimes they confiscate the bodies of the victims that they kill, and they keep them. And maybe you are aware of this. Now we have like nearly 70 bodies that are kept since April 2016. And of course, we have maybe other 200 that are kept since the beginning years of the occupation. So many of the youth who wanted to avoid this, they clashed with the soldiers by throwing rocks. And so in the surrounding of the hospitals, we had that day 29 people killed in the mosque. And then we had other 4 people or other 5 people who were killed surrounding the hospital or surrounding even the cemeteries where people went to bury their loved ones. In many cases, the army came to the scene, raided the location, and that caused confrontations. Like the youth responded with throwing rocks at the heavy armed soldiers who used live ammunition, and so they caused many other victims. Of course, that time, after it, we the Palestinians, the victims, we were put under curfew for 40 days. And during that, that means people were in house arrest, actually 24/7. Of course, not the whole period. The system was that curfew will be lifted once, 2-3 hours, once in 2-3 days to allow people to get supplies, to give them the opportunity to get supplies. And so that was the policy. And unfortunately, personally, and as a cameraman at the April 3rd, while I was filming also some stone throwing in the center of Hebron, soldiers were, having snipers shooting back at Palestinians with live ammunition. And it was a day when myself got a bullet, a high velocity bullet with my left tibia that left me actually with a permanent disability till today, which made me quit the work as cameraman. Of course, the city of Hebron is still paying the price. We as Palestinians, after this, we were hoping that the settlers will be evacuated from Hebron. But to the contrary, the settler enclaves in Hebron are growing now. Today, we have like 7, 8 settler enclaves in town. We have a restricted area within the city where Palestinians, when they want to go in, they need to go through checkpoints. Some of the areas, only the people who are registered living in the area, they are the ones that only allowed in. Otherwise, they cannot receive any visitors or any friends in their places. Well, what my time, Yara?
1 more minute.
1 more minute. 27 years after the mosque massacre, we, the Palestinians, are still paying the price. The perpetrators are having military protection and formal protection by the Israeli occupying forces and the political level in Israel. Hebron is part of the Palestinian occupied territory in 1967, and then the settler presence in Hebron is complete illegal, the same as the settler presence in all West Bank, including East Jerusalem. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Hisham, and thank you all so much for your presentations. As you can see, there's lots to cover with the situation in Hebron. And so, we thank you all for sharing all of your different stories, and it was a much needed session. So we'd like to move on and open things up for questions. If your question is to a specific speaker, just let us know, but just type your question in the chat box and we'll spend some time doing some Q&A. So we did receive one question already, and that was the question, do the speakers have any connection to the Open Shahada Street work?
You want to go one question at a time?
Sure. Yeah, we'll go one question at a time. We've got 2 questions so far, and I think more will come through. Yeah. So
actually, Badee and I were co-founders of the Open Shahada Street campaign. But during the years, we, especially late 2015, early 2016, the situation in Hebron has very much deteriorated. It was the year when the accessible part of Shuhada Street, together with the neighborhood of Tel Rumeida, were declared as a closed military zone by the Israeli occupation, only allowing the residents in. So we considered this as a ghettoization to the area. In early 2016, we in Hebron Defense Committee launched the campaign Dismantle the Ghetto, Take the Settlers Out of Hebron. And it is the campaign to, as I said, to lift the closures from Hebron and taking the settlers out. So we started the campaign in 2016 as Hebron Defense Committee. In 2017, like human rights defenders, political factions in Hebron, different groups joined the campaign. So the campaign became like a national campaign rather than, Hebron Defense Committee campaign. And as I said, today, the Israeli policies in Hebron is like more ghettoization to the center of Hebron rather than Shuhada Street itself. We know that there was like a specific group remained with the name Open Shuhada Street, but the Dismantle the Ghetto campaign is the much wider campaign that have the support of most residents of the area and most like the civil society, the political parties, the nonviolence resistance group in Hebron.
Wonderful. Thank you, Hisham. The next question that we have is with regards to internationals and the presence of internationals. And folks are wondering whether the COVID situation right now has had an impact with the absence of internationals in Hebron and whether there are still some international observers that are there through the COVID situation. So that's a question for anyone.
Oh, is Badee gone?
Let me ask.
Okay, I will take the question. first, the Israeli policies against the Palestinians have severe effect even during the corona virus time. First, when we talk about the restricted area in Hebron, Haya talked earlier about like not allowing ambulances in, and so medical aid is not available, in the restricted area in Hebron. But it's also applies on many of the areas within the West Bank, like the Jordan Valley, for example, and the South Hebron Hills. Like these areas, they have lack of medical services. There is a small community to the south of Hebron, for example, called Zanuta. They have a clinic. The headquarter of the clinic, the center of the clinic, is actually a trailer, a mobile house that was donated by YMCA, and the Israelis recently has issued a demolition order for that. The clinic is run by the Palestinian Medical Relief Committee, as the governmental health center also is very poor. Today we talk about the vaccines also. Like the vaccines has got to many of the countries all over the globe. In Palestine, we got very limited vaccines that was given to the medical teams, and that's it. Until today, we have no access for vaccine. The worst is in Gaza, actually, because the Israelis were putting some political conditions relating having the vaccine inside. But with the biggest struggle, actually, the Gazans has got some vaccine 2 days ago, but there is a very big, actually, media coverage about it, and even there are rightist political forces in Israel, and families of soldiers who are kept hostages in Gaza in the hands of the resistance. They pressure the Israeli government not to allow the vaccine in. So that's in general about the vaccine. We have the biggest problem maybe about the vaccine to the Palestinians is also in East Jerusalem, because in East Jerusalem, the Israeli authorities are now not allowing the Palestinians for any kind of organizing. Like the Palestinians try to have, quarantine centers and raising awareness centers, and the Israelis raid everything or close it down and not allow any Palestinian activity. They say that it's the responsibility of the Israeli government. It's the responsibility of them as occupiers, but then they should not, deny the Palestinians their right of organizing and their right of self-awareness and so on.
Thank you, Hisham. But yeah, did you want to add anything?
Well, I just wanted to talk. I just wanted to highlight about the open Shahada seat, as Hisham, he was mentioned that we were part of the co-founder, and I was the director of the abroad actions in that time. But Shahada Street, it's the issue of Hebron is not just about the street itself. It's about a city, and this is city now. It's facing settlers, colonists. They are taking everything from Hebron. It's not just about the street. When we talk about and to educate and to focus just with the street, we simplistic our issue. So what we need to take the settlers from Hebron, the settlements of the colonies from Hebron, and after that, the Shuhada street will be open. All the heart of the city will be open. For that, for that, we start with this is local and international campaign to recruit people for Shuhada Street. And you can go and visit our YouTube channel. We upload all the marching and the demonstration of the Dismantle the Ghetto campaigns, and you can see the capacity of the people that we are recruiting them, and they were marching with us. You talk about thousands of people have been marched with us, and this is, you talk about 2017, you talk about 2018, even 2019, and even 2020, and you will see 1,000 people have been attend this is demonstration we have been organizing, and we're going to have also next Friday, 26th of February, we're going to have also another demonstration under the title of Dismantle the Ghetto from Hebron and take the settlers out of the Hebron. So the Hebron situation, it's very complicated, and it's not just about talking about the street. We're talking about families. They are forced to leave from their houses, from their shops in different places. We talk about Shallal Street. They are empty. They talk about also Shahada Street. It shut down all the Shahada Street. There are also a street which is near Kiryat Arba. The families there, they are not allowed for them to driving their cars. Only just allow for them to walk there. There are also families who are living in areas which is this is areas become like a closed areas, and not allowed for those people to have visitors at all. Only if they have registered names in this is military checkpoints. I have a story that when I was witness a family, he was invited his daughter and her husband to come to have the breakfast in Ramadan, the dinner, and the soldier didn't let him to go through the checkpoints because he wasn't registered, and then he have it on the checkpoint with the family of those people who have been invited him. The same situation we did an action also in the entrance of Shuhada Street, and families they were invited us and invited some of their relatives in order that to come to have the to break in their breakfast with them, and the soldiers at that time they are block us. I didn't allow for us to go to join this is families to have this is a breakfast with them in Ramadan, and then we have it, and this is also we have a video about it. We have it with on the ground in the street at that time, and also there are some images and also pictures can explain this is stories. There are many stories in Hebron. We cannot handle it in with this short time, but this is what the situation we are trying to do all our best to expose the Israeli occupation crimes and to try to recruit more people to attend the situation of Hebron.
Thank you, Badee. Thank you for all the work that you're
Can
doing.
I
And
add something?
of course, go ahead on it.
Yeah, about the COVID-19. As I'm living in Jaber neighborhood, is close to the old city, so the Israeli give the vaccine to the settlers and to the all the citizens who live in Israel. And as I'm Palestinian, or as we are Palestinian who living in this closed area, we are deprived from any rights. You know, we are considered as a Palestinians, but we are under the Israeli control, and we are touched to the settlers and to the Israelis. So we are in danger, both of us. So instead of, for example, uh, also give us the vaccine, so they privilege this and prejudice the vaccine to the settlers themselves and consider us as an enemy or non-human. So this is we like they should consider us like this issue is a human issue. It should be non-separated whether we are Palestinians and they are Israeli, because it's a world natural issue. So we should both vaccine, but they privilege this to the Israeli themselves, to the settlers, and the Palestinians who live inside this closed area. They leave us to our issue. So just I want to add this.
Thank you, Alaa. And
You're welcome.
you know, it's been something that's actually been being covered by some American and Canadian media outlets, which is, you know, as many will know, a little bit rare, but Canadian and American media outlets have actually been making some commentary about how the Israeli government is limiting access to Palestinians. And so I think really the world is watching, and we are really in solidarity with you all. We recognize the right to be vaccinated and to have access to vaccines. I want to ask a question. There's a question for Haya. And this question is about the kind of violence, the gender-based violence that a Palestinian woman may be subjected to from settlers and soldiers, and whether they are subjected to harassment or violence from settlers and soldiers. Could you speak to that?
Actually, Palestinian women and also men are all exposed and subjected to violence, all kind of violence by Israeli settlers and soldiers. I talked about the settlers' assaults in my speech before. And also sexual violence is part of it. And it doesn't have to be physical. Sometimes it's verbal violence. I myself was verbally, was assaulted by a soldier, by a settler, sorry. They learn the bad words and they name us, like they call us with bad words in Arabic. They only learn the bad words and they keep calling Palestinian names. Also, at the checkpoints, sometimes Palestinian women have to go through strip searching, which is really embarrassing and not okay. And they call it sexual violence. And sometimes Palestinian women who are prisoners at in Israeli jails, uh, they get strip searched during interrogations. They are more exposed to more violence from Israeli soldiers who, you know, who assault the prisoners, and they treat them in a really bad way, and sexual abuse and violence is part of it. So yes, we are, like, in its all forms and different types, we are exposed to that kind of violence.
Thank you, Haya, for sharing that with us. And it's, like I mentioned earlier, a very important piece, the ways in which occupation and I think apartheid have an impact on women. So thank you so much for sharing that. There is one more question that I'd like to cover, and that is around the International Criminal Court's investigation. There's a question about whether the International Criminal Court is going to investigate Hebron as part of their work. I don't know if anyone is aware of any kind of investigation related to Hebron.
Well, I want to say that, you know, the International Criminal Court is still in the primary work. Only recently it has been decided that the court have geographic jurisdiction relating, you know, the borders of the area that they should investigate crimes at, which is the West Bank, including East Jerusalem, and Gaza, which is the Palestinian state. And only maybe 10 days ago, they have appointed a new, you know, public attorney to the state, public prosecutor. So it's early to say that whether they are going to do it or not. Palestinian human rights organizations have submitted lots of submissions, actually, relating different crimes of the occupation, mainly about settlements and settler expansion, land confiscation, you know, the right to private ownership, and so on. And of course, we have some cases about, you know, the killing of Palestinians and the bodies that are detained, and home demolition. We hope that there will be a future progress in this. But you know, the coming public prosecutor of the court is going to take his position in June. The former one, she was doing like some primary research and so on, but without having the jurisdiction relating, you know, the geographic jurisdiction. And so now the court itself, in, let's say, transformation process itself. But the most important is that we, the Palestinians, we try to document all crimes done by the occupation. And we are so much ready in many of the files, actually, that have been already submitted, or some files can be submitted later to the court. But you know that also the Trump administration has declared sanctions on the court. They say that they will cancel any types of visas that is given to the public prosecutor of the court, Fatim Bensouda, and her investigation teams And Trump himself was calling the court that it is biased and political, and it's the same for Israel. And recently, after the decision, which is about the geographic jurisdiction area of the court, Benjamin Netanyahu said that this court is anti-Semite. And, we, the Palestinians, did not form this court. We did not appoint, the leading bodies of it, and we did not put the system of it. We just joined the court after it has been, the charter has been, the mandate has been made by other countries. But we try to benefit of something that is part of the international law, but unfortunately, when it comes to the Palestinians, we are accused either of being anti-Semite together with the people who support us, or we will be labeled as terrorists and so on. And what I want to say, maybe in brief, like we the Palestinians, we are just normal people. Like we have secular people and people of faith and atheists and drug dealers and scholars and religious people and and so on, and secular people. And so we deserve to live as the same as any other nation in the world. We deserve to have normal life. We deserve to have the right of self-determination, to determine about the details of our life and not wait for someone else to determine for us and tell us what's right and what's wrong. And this is our country. We were here all the time, and we want to live here peacefully.
Thank you so much, Hisham. And on that note, I think we'll wrap up the questions. I just want to say thank you so much to all of you for your for sharing your personal stories and for your courage and for your sumud. And from the diaspora and from North America and Europe and so on, we're all steadfast with you, and we will continue to be in solidarity with you. So thank you so much. And I do apologize for anyone whose question we didn't get into. We are very limited on time, as you know, and this is a really important topic with so much to cover. But I would like to briefly take a moment to point to our Kumi entry and action for the week, which will be shared in the chat as well. This week, you will get a choice of actions. The first of these is to find a sign that says open on a restaurant or shop and leave a note beneath it that reads Shahada Street. If anyone asks what open Shahada Street means, explain to them the reality in Hebron. Another action that you can do this week is to hold a vigil for the 29 victims of the Ibrahimi Mosque massacre at your church or your school. And the third is to host a screening of the film Soldier on the Roof. The film can be rented at the address that is being shared in the chat. Share photos of whichever action you choose on social media and include a link to this page of the Kumi Now website, along with the hashtags Open Shahada Street, Open Shahada, hashtag Kumi Now, and hashtag Kumi8. And I would like to give our guests just an opportunity to chime in quickly if you have any thoughts about the Kumi action or other ways that people watching can help promote Palestinian businesses. I saw, Badee, you've shared some wonderful resources in the chat box. Is there anything else you'd like to point our guests to?
No, I was shared something about we have the video channels and we have 100 videos, and this is video channels. If anyone want to learn about the situation with more deep details in Hebron, he can watch some of these videos. Some of videos talks about people who are stopped in the checkpoints, some of them kids, some of them women, some of them they are students in the schools, they couldn't reach their schools. There are different types of humiliations of videos talking about silver stories and different stories. The only things you can go to access to our YouTube channel, which is called Capture Occupation Camera Project, and you can see and you can watch many of these videos, which is reflected many of the stories. And I was sent some of the links that some articles that I have been wrote about personal stories, like some happened with my son. And also you can find many of these articles which is I have been wrote about it to reflect the whole situation in Hebron as I can from my point of view of me, and also about how it's related to my personal stories, so people they can understand much better to build much better image about the situation of Hebron. What I want to say that we hope that all the people around over the world they can do stand for more as as much as they can to the justice and freedom for the Palestinians by doing some activism. And one of this is activism which is really painful. The Israeli occupation is the BDS. But BDS also we need to try to go to the parliaments with people, stakeholders, and decision makers to involve them and also to include them with this is BDS till our work become more effective and more powerful in order to effect and to pressure Israel occupation to stop their occupation and the humiliating system against the Palestinian people.
Thank you, Badee. And those links are being placed in the chat. I saw the article has been linked in the chat. So if you just have a look at the chat box, you'll see some of the links of additional actions that you could participate in. And on that note, I'd like to just thank you all for joining us today. A link of this session will be available on the Kumi Now website and on YouTube in a day or so, and it will be shared in the next newsletter. We would greatly appreciate if you could share this amazing session with your friends and colleagues, as well as information on how to join our future sessions. Next week, we will be addressing the checkpoints, walls, roadblocks, policies, and laws that limit the movement of Palestinians within their own land. If you'd like to be reminded of the online gatherings an hour before they begin, you can register for email reminders at kuminow.com/online using the form at the bottom of the page. We hope to see you back here next week. Thank you again and have a wonderful day or evening.